The decision made too late to undo. It began with hesitation, not fear, not doubt, but belief that there would be more time. One more quarter, one more review, one more chance to adjust before the consequences arrived. But some decisions don't wait, and some delays quietly transform into destinies. Powerful leaders are taught to be cautious, to gather data, to avoid rash moves. Yet history is shaped not only by bold action, but by moments when action arrives just a fraction too late. And today, in a world that moves faster than judgment, this story matters more than ever. The billionaire at the center of this moment was respected for patience, known for restraint, admired for never rushing into uncertainty. Their empire thrived on timing, entering markets only when conditions were clear, expanding only when risks were mapped. It was a strategy that worked brilliantly, until it didn't. The reveal began with an early warning, a subtle shift in the landscape that most dismissed as noise, a new competitor gaining quiet traction, a technology evolving faster than forecasts predicted. Advisors flagged it, but cautiously. Analysts debated its relevance. The billionaire listened, absorbed the information, and chose to wait, not because the signal was wrong, but because it wasn't yet undeniable. Weeks passed, then months. The signal strengthened. Market behavior changed. Early adopters moved. Insiders urged acceleration. Still, the billionaire hesitated, not out of ignorance, but out of discipline. The empire had been built by avoiding premature moves. Why break the pattern now? The decision to wait felt responsible, measured, safe. But beneath that safety, the clock was already ticking. The reveal sharpened when internal projections were updated. The opportunity window was narrowing. Speed mattered more than certainty now. The models showed diminishing returns the longer action was delayed. The billionaire saw the numbers, understood the implication, and scheduled another review, one more confirmation, one more layer of assurance. What they didn't see was that the market had already decided. The future doesn't pause for consensus. And the moment the decision was finally made, it would already be too late to undo what hesitation had set in motion. The delay carried a strange comfort. Every new report seemed to justify waiting just a little longer. Volatility remained high. Forecasts varied. Advisors warned against moving without full alignment. The billionaire nodded, trusting the discipline that had guided every previous success. Acting too early had always been the greater danger. The reveal deepened when competitors began moving quietly, not aggressively, not loudly, just enough to test the waters. Small acquisitions, subtle partnerships, pilot launches framed as experiments rather than commitments. Nothing dramatic, nothing headline-worthy. The billionaire noticed and still chose restraint. Inside the organization, tension grew. Younger executives argued that speed now mattered more than precision. They pointed to shifts in consumer behavior that couldn't yet be captured in models. They warned that waiting for certainty meant surrendering initiative. The billionaire listened carefully, thanked them, and postponed the decision. Not no, later. The moment sharpened when a key partner requested clarity. They needed to know whether the company intended to lead this new direction or observe from the sidelines. The billionaire offered reassurance without commitment. The partner accepted politely, then quietly began exploring alternatives. What felt like patience was becoming ambiguity. Data continued to accumulate. The signal grew stronger. What was once speculative now appeared structural. The billionaire felt the pressure mounting, not from fear, but from awareness. The opportunity was real. The risk of delay was growing. And yet, the instinct to wait remained powerful. Acting without perfect visibility still felt like betrayal of everything that had built the empire. Then came the report that changed the tone. A competitor had crossed the threshold. Not publicly, not triumphantly, but definitively. They had committed capital, talent, and time. They weren't testing anymore. They were building. The billionaire stared at the summary longer than usual. The numbers were still uncertain, the risk still present, but something else was now clear. The window was no longer wide. It was narrowing fast. Internal meetings grew more urgent. Voices sharpened. The phrase first mover advantage, appeared more frequently. So did its darker counterpart. Missed opportunity. The billionaire felt the balance shifting, slowly but unmistakably, from caution to consequence. And still, the decision waited. Because the hardest choices aren't the ones that look dangerous. They're the ones that look responsible, right up until the moment they aren't. The conflict was no longer approaching. It was already unfolding, minute by minute, while the empire stood still. The conflict broke the moment hesitation became irreversible. By the time the billionaire finally authorized action, the environment had changed. The market no longer felt tentative. It felt occupied. Competitors had established positions, locked in partners, and shaped consumer expectations. What once looked like an open frontier now resembled contested ground. Inside the company, urgency replaced debate. Teams rushed to assemble strategies that should have been built months earlier. Budgets were approved in days instead of quarters. Talent was reassigned abruptly. The billionaire pushed for speed, but speed arrived too late. Every move now felt reactive, not visionary. The emotional toll surfaced quickly. The billionaire watched as proposals were forced to compromise, not because they lacked ambition, but because the best options were already gone. Exclusive partnerships had been signed. Key platforms closed their doors. Early adopters were loyal elsewhere. The empire was no longer choosing its future. It was negotiating for relevance. The breaking point came during a high-stakes meeting with a potential partner who had once waited patiently for the billionaire's signal. Now, the tone was different. Polite, professional, distant. The partner explained that commitments had already been made. They wished things had moved faster. They hoped there would be room for collaboration later. That word carried the full weight of what had been lost. Internally, morale began to fracture. Younger leaders felt vindicated but frustrated. Senior executives grew defensive. Everyone understood what no one wanted to say aloud. The delay had cost more than opportunity. It had cost credibility. The company's reputation as a leader had been replaced by the image of a cautious follower. The billionaire felt the truth settle heavily. This wasn't about one missed deal or one late entry. It was about momentum, the invisible force that decides who shapes markets and who responds to them. And momentum, once surrendered, is brutally difficult to reclaim. Late one night, alone with the projections, the billionaire reviewed a timeline of events. The first signal, the second warning, the narrowing window, the final decision. The pattern was undeniable. Each delay had felt justified in isolation. Together, they formed a single defining mistake. The decision itself had not been wrong. The timing had been. And timing, unlike strategy, does not forgive. The emotional peak arrived with a realization both simple and devastating. The future hadn't rejected the empire. The empire had arrived after the future had already moved on. What remained now was not a chance to lead, but a choice about how to live with being late. And the final act would determine whether the billionaire accepted that truth or tried one last time to outrun it. The climax arrived not with collapse, but with acceptance. The billionaire stood before the leadership team and spoke the truth no one wanted a voice. The market had moved, the window had closed, and chasing what was already established would only drain energy without restoring authority. The room was silent, heavy with the weight of mistiming. For a moment, pride tempted one last push, a louder campaign, a faster acquisition, a bold announcement meant to signal relevance. But the billionaire saw through the illusion. Power doesn't return through noise. It returns through clarity. And clarity demanded a harder choice. They canceled the rushed expansion. The decision stunned the company. Analysts expected escalation, not restraint. But the billionaire explained what hesitation had taught them too late. Entering second while pretending to lead only damages trust. If the empire could not shape this future, it would not fake ownership of it. Instead, the billionaire redirected resources toward something quieter but more enduring. Infrastructure, talent, long-term research. Areas untouched by the current race, but critical to the next one. The goal was no longer to win the present moment, but to prepare for the one after it. The resolution unfolded slowly. The company stabilized, no longer chasing a market it had missed. Critics called the move conservative. Supporters called it disciplined. But inside the billionaire, something deeper settled, a painful respect for time itself. Because time does not reward intelligence alone. It rewards courage at the correct moment. In private, the billionaire replayed the early signals again and again, not with regret, but with understanding. The lesson was clear now, carved into experience. Waiting for certainty is a decision, and like all decisions, it carries a cost. The empire would continue, profitable, respected, but something intangible had changed forever. It would no longer be the first to arrive, and the billionaire would always know why. The future does not belong to the bold or the careful. It belongs to the timely. And that is the lesson no model can calculate, no advisor can guarantee, and no amount of success can erase once learned. So what do you think? Are we repeating the same mistake again?